So this notice is the appraisal notice was sent out when you get the appraisal valuations. You're gonna be seeing this now. Beginning August 7th, visit the Texas Government Property Taxes to find a link to your local property tax database on which you can easily access information regarding property taxes, including information regarding the amount of taxes that each entity that taxes your property will impose if the entity adopts its proposed tax rate. Your local property tax database will be updated regularly during August and September as local elected officials propose and adopt the property tax rates that will be determined how much you pay in property taxes. So I already went to that. It's up and running right now. I'm not sure if you got through it. I put in an account number from here, and you pull it up so anybody can go in with that tax, pull up your property. Right now it only shows your 2020 tax year. 0.891 is indicating right now the 2021 no revenue is 0, voter approval taxes for 2021 is 0, proposed taxes at 0, adopted, and difference between revenue rate and the prorate. That's a 0. But now they can go and see what everyone is doing on their specific property. When you go in there, you pick an account. You pick the county, and you can pull up that information. So that's a big significance on your. You'll see on your notices. And that's it for now. But we're going to have a presentation if you want to do. It's 2 hours to cover the whole thing, and I put an invitation if you'd like to attend August 19th. And it'll be from our Austin office. They'll be doing it in San Antonio. And I did leave the invitation there if you want to see the whole presentation, which is 2 hours of not really more appraisal changes, but it'll be covered everything that's in this book if you have any questions.
Well, Mr. Rocha, thank you so much. They provide a valuable service for us in collecting those community taxes. We appreciate you, and thank you for that comprehensive report. We appreciate it.
Thank you. That's a good evening. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, now we're moving on to item 6C, discuss building codes and other related codes adopted by the city of Pearsall and permitting process that addresses these codes. City manager?
Up. Mayor, council, good evening. In your packet, I wanted to give some semblance of some idea of what was included for this agenda item. So what you have on beginning on page 13 of your packet, you have the codes that were adopted by the city council, and I believe these were adopted, the first set on page 12 was adopted February of 2019. Then with that, the codes that were adopted was the International Residential Code, International Building Code. These are the 2018 version, the International Energy Conservation Code, and the International Property Code, Maintenance Code. That was adopted in February of 2019. In July of 2020, what was adopted was the 2015 International Plumbing Code and the 2017 National Electric Code. So those are the two codes that as far as permits and inspections, that's what the inspectors are looking through and looking for as far as implementation of these codes, and making sure that as people are building or constructing, whatever it is they're doing on their property, that's what they're following. The other couple of things that we also included was on page 17. You'll see that there's some requirements, some submittal requirements that BV&A recommended to the city, that not recommended, is actually when they review plans for a new building. These are the things that are required as part of the permitting process. Now, we do have somebody on from Bureau Veritas that's going to speak to a couple of these things. More simplistic, with what we include in the application can be found on page 18 for any new builds. And so those are required in order to, again, when somebody comes and drops off a set of plans, that's what we're asking them to provide. We have met, so the council's aware, we've met with, and Bureau Veritas has been part of the meeting, AAP has been part of the meeting. We've had some of our trades that have been part of the meeting. We met with them as far as some of this permitting and inspection and what's required, and I think most of them at the very least understand it. And so it's just something that I know that there's been some questions as far as, how the permitting process works for the city, and what all the moving parts are. The last, and what's important to us, and it's all important, but on page 19 of your packet, what you'll also see is the permit and inspection requirements. Now, these permit and inspection requirements are required for anybody that's wanting electricity from AEP. These are rules and regulations that cities pass that AEP basically says, in order for you to get power services, if you don't have them, this is what you need. And again, it's found on page 19 of your packet. Now, the city can modify these particular items as you see fit. And I think Derek maybe will explain some of this to you, but as far as what's currently required, what we currently ask people that want to get electric services that don't have it, these are all requirements that the city imposed years back, I don't know when, that AEP goes by. So I just wanted to make sure that the council was aware that these are the requirements that the city has, and again, that were imposed several years back. I did ask Bureau Veritas to be on the call, because I know that some of the meetings and some of the discussions we've had with some of our tradespeople and even with AEP, I know that some of the council members were not involved, so I felt it was a good time to include the council. So if y'all had any questions related to inspections and permits, it'd be a good time to ask. And again, I also asked them to provide some things that they're seeing out in the field. We went over some things even when we met with them that they were seeing as far as inspections and what we were asking them to do. And some of it is a bit, how can I put this? It's sensitive, because some of it would require, for instance, a complete certificate of occupancy would require that we enter a person's home or a person's business, if you will. That's what a certificate of occupancy is. Again, I'll let Derek explain some of this stuff, but what you have in here, I'm assuming are some of the pictures he sent, and I'll let him speak. Derek, are you on? Is he on? Can you hear us? Can you talk?
It'll be on that system.
You should be able to hear him. You should be able to hear him. You can't get him on, Chris?
If he's on, he's asking if we can hear him.
Tell him to get himself. Is he on Zoom? Is he on?
Maybe he's on mute.
mute?
No, he's not.
We do this.
There. He's gonna come to the computer.
Okay.
Derek, can you hear us?
Can you hear? We do this. Oh.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Derek, I've got you on speaker here. He is, I think, we can hear you. I don't know if you can hear us.
No, sir, it was on mute the whole time.
Okay.
It's not mute.
Yeah, but we can hear you on our end.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, go ahead, and we'll listen. Kristen may just have to
Okay,
listen.
Okay, well, I'm not for sure, what you want me to start with. So you are getting ready to start you're gonna be adopting new codes, is that correct?
No, Derek, we already have. What I was going over the council, was going over with them was the codes we have adopted so far, which you guys are using for inspection purposes.
Correct.
And what I was getting with them is if you could kind of highlight some of the things you guys are doing out there in the field, how y'all apply these codes to what's going on out there, and then at the same time, why we request as far as the permitting process, particularly building of new structures. I think one of the questions has been, why do we request so many things as far as people actually building, what the purpose is of what all is needed for a new build?
Well, what we do is, for new build, generally, it's not really necessary for the residential side. Those are pretty,
So we did hear that it's not needed for the residential side.
Hello?
Hello, I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on, I haven't had this issue.
Crystal, take him off that, take him off that. We're gonna take you off the computer, and we're just gonna put you on speakerphone, how about that?
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I apologize about that. I planned on being there, and then she had mentioned about doing the Zoom, so I figured that might be easier to do.
Not with us sometimes, but there, what's asked on this end, Eric, is there's a residential permit.
Correct.
Whenever people apply for residential permits, what we gave them is what's included in the packet, and this was, what's BB&A came up with. I think we're asking for as part of a building permit application, there's 2 sets of plans to include the legal description and lot dimensions, 2 sets of energy reports, 2 sets of stamped engineered foundation letters, 2 sets of stamped engineered foundation plans, 2 sets of house plans, and 2 sets of engineered wind bracing plans. So that's what
Okay, well, in Pearsall, that does not apply.
none of it?
I've been telling you that.
For the windstorm, no, sir.
Okay, how about the rest of it?
No, it's typical construction in Pearsall. And that's what I was talking to Crystal earlier about is, we do a lot of, the coastal area as well.
Okay,
So it's kind of all, inclusive in the contract.
okay,
But in Pearsall, it's just typical construction.
which means what?
They don't have to worry about the extra, foundation requirements, the wind bracing, and all that. That's all unnecessary there.
This is part of our, I think, part of our discussion we've had with members of BV&A is, it was Mr. Livingston, and he was telling us this was required.
They've never had.
So I don't know, I don't know.
No, sir. No, in Pearsall, no, sir, you don't require the windstorm inspections.
How about
What
the,
inspections is that called?
it's,
You do it all-
the wind bracing inspections, we don't require that, and then we don't require, what about the energy reports?
That's actually a federal requirement. That's also a state requirement.
Okay,
That was in effect, I don't know, probably maybe 15 years ago or so.
so,
And what they do is they do a res check or a comp check,
mhm.
and they have to submit that with their application for permit.
So-
And that's something that the state legislators said, hey, the city's required to make sure that that's taken care of.
So on the foundation letters, you're saying that that's not required either for residential?
Correct. Yeah, it's just typical construction with foundation.
Okay, that's, again, that's not what's been conveyed to us, and we have asked that on more than one occasion,
Okay.
whether that was required, and it's always been, we get it back from your plan reviewers, and they tell us we have to submit that information.
They
Okay.
started giving me that information about 6 years ago.
Well, I'm making notes right now, so,
Yep,
and I'll talk to them about that.
yeah, so let me ask you this, what then, based on what we're reading here, what is required then? As far as when somebody submits a building, you mentioned, what is it that the average builder is supposed to bring in, or anybody that's interested in building a home?
In the home, well, they need to submit some type of plan. And typically, we've been doing a lot with the GLO homes, so usually it's an architect or an engineer that will submit the plans.
Right,
But, a homeowner can go online and find a set of plans
okay,
and submit those. We just need something to look at to see what the envelope's going to be. But we have to make sure that it meets the energy code. And while we're doing the inspections, we'll make sure that it meets the minimum standards of the residential code.
okay.
And I think in y'all's area, y'all have black clay.
Oh, we have
Is that correct?
Sandy Loan. Are you
Oh,
ta-
sandy loam.
Yep,
Okay.
yep,
Well, that makes it a little bit easier.
yep,
But yeah, so we check to see what type of soil is in that area,
Mm-hmm.
to what type of foundation, but we do that on our inspections.
Okay.
And I'll talk to the plan reviewers about that as well.
Yep. Yeah, because again, we've turned these in with the understanding that this is what you guys were asking us to, having the customers provide. Now, in saying that, whenever people decide to build their home, which I was told that people can build their homes, the question becomes, okay, how does that happen in terms of them saying, hey, yeah, you guys are passing inspections? How does that normally play out? With people building their own homes.
If somebody's building a home, as far as the building side, they're allowed to do so.
Right.
But by state law, for the plumbing, electrical, and mechanical, they have to hire a licensed contractor
Right.
because it has to be a homestead, and it can't be a homestead until you live there.
Right. So anybody that's renting or leasing a space, what would be the difference between what they have to do as opposed to somebody that owns the home, or it's gonna be their homestead?
Well, as long as, well, see, and that's another thing that the state required the cities to do a long time ago is to require the cities to see if that property is homesteaded to that owner.
Right.
And if it's not, then they have to get a licensed contractor. The only thing that they don't have to be licensed for is building. But they still have to meet the minimum requirements.
Mayor, I have a question for him.
All right, Mr. Smith, this has been Briscoe. We've got some council members that have some questions for you. Councilwoman Rodriguez does. She's going to be speaking to you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I'm sorry, I barely hear you.
Okay, I'm gonna read it. Okay, hi, this is Councilwoman Rodriguez. On the rentals,
Yes, ma'am.
on the rental properties, when they are getting an inspection done, the actual the renter, in order to get services turned on, if the owner of the home, and this has been a recent change here in the city, if the owner of the home wants to sign off on the inspection that they did for that home, are they able to do that?
Well, if it's just a transfer of services,
Yes.
then that shouldn't be an issue as long as it meets the minimum standards.
Okay, a transfer of service, as long as it meets the minimum standards, right?
Correct.
Okay, and the other
And as
question.
far as you're talking about for electric,
Yes, because but we're coming into places where they're making them go get a licensed electrician when somebody's already lived there. It's just going into a whole new a new renter. But the house has been in place for so many years.
Derek, what we,
yeah, and that's something that I'm going to have to discuss with AEP
yep,
Okay,
because what happens is when the cities that I've worked for in the past, you know, if the services haven't been off for more than say 6 months,
okay,
and they transfer services to another property owner or a new renter,
yes,
I didn't go in and do the inspections. But if it's been, you know, longer than that, then I would go in and make sure that everything was still safe to turn on.
okay, yeah, because we're coming into problems where somebody's lived there for 10 years, they get a new renter within 3 months' time, and they want them to change everything on the home when that home has been in service for a long time. But I'm gonna
Right.
give, yeah,
Yeah, and that's the issue that we're having with evidently with AEP.
okay, yeah, because that's something new that they just recently started doing. Just because from experience, I know people that would sign off as homeowners because they're the ones actually responsible for the home, is that they're letting them know that that home is ready to go. But I'm gonna go ahead and go back to building home. I'm actually going back. You answered my question on building homes. I think we were going and giving them a whole lot more than what was needed. But if a business is coming in and they're wanting to put in a little portable or build a little building, would the plans be sketched out sufficient enough for y'all to review to make sure that it meets the minimum standard as well as the energy code when y'all go in there to review it?
What's it gonna be used for?
So